When I was 17 years old, 3 grown men tried to take my life because of the color of my skin. And I always say that it wasn't just what they did to me physically, the beating. It was the things that they said to me about me. And that's what stuck with me. You know, that's trauma.
I have one physical kidney, but I always tell people I have 2 kidneys.
2 kidneys.
Because the other one is still energetically there.
It is there. And because you believe that, then guess what?
Yes. And then when they check my function, the doctor always say, it's amazing you have a better function than people with 2 kidneys.
He had me removed from the hospital because I threatened him that if he told her that, I was going to do things to him. And he had me thrown out of the hospital. Wow. But here's the difference. While I was outside of the hospital, I practiced what I preach. I stepped back and went, okay, wait a minute. I'm upset. That's not changing anything. What can I do? And that's when I started to realize that, well, wait a minute. I can influence my mom, and I can influence her in the things that I knew about health and our belief systems and how we can change our mind in dealing with that kind of thing.
Welkom. Dit is de podcast To Master Your Life nummer 212. Heb jij de E-factor, de aantrekkingskracht? Een dieptegesprek met niemand minder dan co-trainer van Tony Robbins, Mr. MCCLendon III. Mijn naam is Vilna van Betten en ik heb er super veel zin in. Hallo lieve dames en mensen, ik zit hier met niemand minder dan MCCLendon III, degene die hier in Nederland is gekomen om de E-factor, een prachtig event waarbij die persoonlijke transformaties bewerkstelligt, heeft neergezet. We just finished the E-factor. Welcome, Mr. MCCLendon. It's such an honor and I'm feeling so blessed sitting next to you, talking with you in the podcast about transformation and healing, because that's where my podcast is all about.
Well, thank you so much. I'm glad that you're having me on your podcast. And I'm also glad that you're going to speak to me in English, because I was afraid when you started talking Dutch, I was like, I'm in trouble, because I just know very, very little Dutch.
You do know a little bit Dutch. You do understand it a little, because you've been here the first time 10 years ago, right?
Yes. No. The first time was probably 20 years ago.
Really?
Maybe 25 years ago. Yeah.
Already for giving seminars, or was it? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start off with that. What is your age, Mr. Joseph?
I'm 70 years old.
People don't believe you.
Yeah, well, I don't lie.
Because your energy and the way that you're still doing this is amazing.
Well, thank you.
And of course, I can understand. I also don't believe you're 70. I talked to my colleagues who were with me, and they were like, 70? You mean 50? I said, no, 70.
I'm 70.
How do you do that?
It's a combination of these 3 things. Obviously, I take care of my health, what I eat and what I, consume in my body goes in my mouth. But I also take care of myself, what goes into my eyes, ears, and what I feel and things like that. So I believe, and that to me is what's called happiness. Mm-hmm. I'm a very happy person. And the third thing is I practice what I preach. All the things I teach at the A-Factor, I practice them on myself. So how I think, my psychology and all of those things add to it. It gives you the discipline. It gives you the willingness to do the things that are tough sometimes, that are hard to do. And to make normal the things that are good for you, that other people dislike, or people think that, no, I couldn't do that, I wouldn't do that.
What do you mean by dislike? Because it's uncomfortable for them to do, or because it's something that's not nice to do?
Exercise, or eat the right kinds of foods, or abstain from doing the things that are harming their bodies and things like that.
Yeah, I believe that all behavior is a conditioning, is an addiction in kind of a way. Because,
I would agree.
Yeah. Because once you act on it and it's in your system, then your system automatically wants it as a need. For example, exercise. I had a knee injury and then I couldn't run anymore. And then my whole body started to ask for the run. That's what you mean probably by doing it and being the role model.
Yeah.
You put it in your system and then...
Well, yes. And I agree with you 100%, because, you put it in a positive way, in that your body wanted to do the thing that was healthy for you.
Yes.
And because you put it in a positive way, I'll go in a negative way.
Yeah.
And that is to do what other people do, which is not so good for us. The types of food that we eat. You know, most people don't run.
No.
And so it's uncomfortable for them to run. So if they do run, they have the opposite feeling than you do. Then they're going, I don't want to run.
Exactly.
You know?
Yes.
So they become addicted to the negative side of it as well. And as we know,
Yes.
you know, we can help break those types of habits and behaviors.
Because when I was really impressed by, well, a lot of stories you told me, but one of the stories you told me was the start of your life, because there was a point when you were around 16 or 17 years old where you were not so happy anymore.
Yeah.
Can you tell that story?
Yeah. I like to start before that story.
Yeah.
I had great parents and had a great upbringing. My father was very, let's just say, disciplined man, and he taught us discipline. He taught myself and my sisters how to have a good work ethic. My mother was an artist and a singer, and she was very disciplined as well. So we come from that background. So I was fortunate in that way. And they also taught us to have great self-esteem about ourselves and to respect others and to love others and everything. When I was 17 years old, 3 grown men tried to take my life because of the color of my skin. And I always say that it wasn't just what they did to me physically, the beating. It was the things that they said to me about me. And that's what stuck with me. You know, that's trauma. And I like to put it, trauma happens once. But the memory of the trauma lives on and on. It lives in our heads.
And it triggers.
It keeps on triggering.
Yeah.
And then it becomes an unconscious belief. And that belief about my own self-worth dominated me, and I became homeless.
So your coping strategy was to, how do you say that? To disconnect or to disassociate? With the deeper feeling?
I would say that's accurate. I'm not sure that I would call it a coping strategy as much as I would say it was a path that I went along, that I started to, because I was traumatized and conditioned, you said this earlier, conditioned, because conditioning doesn't have to take a long time. As you know, we can do it very, very quickly. That conditioning instilled it in me right now that here's who I am. So I behaved how I believed who I was. And I believed that I was worthless. And so I guess it could be a coping strategy. For me, it was just more, I just started acting like that's what was in my head.
Yeah, but what we see when we experience a freeze or a moment that you're so overwhelmed by the act of the 3 men that the amygdala is hijacked, right? And as soon as the amygdala is hijacked, we cannot process the emotion. And then the coping strategy comes in. And we act upon that.
I see what you mean now.
Kind of way,
I would agree with you then. I think that I agree with you on that, and I think, at least in my case, and I'm not disagreeing with you. It's just a conversation. I processed the emotion by agreeing with it.
Yeah.
I processed the emotion by going, this is the way that it is. This is who I am.
By starting to believe in it.
And I chose to believe it, and I processed it by living with it and accepting it, if you will. And then my behavior
as a reality,
as a reality. Yeah. So we may be saying the same thing. Yeah.
And then what happened? Because you felt worthless for a long time or for a while.
Yeah, for a long time.
How did you deal with that?
I didn't. I started to behave, meaning, if you mean how did I deal with it, meaning how did I deal with the pain and all that stuff, I didn't. I just started to behave a certain way. In other words, I went against everything that I was raised to be. I stopped caring. I started hanging out with the wrong kinds of people. And by the way, nobody around me knew that I was homeless. During the day, I'd go hang out with, my biker friends and everything. And at night, I'd go live in my cardboard box. Wow. Now, fortunately, I didn't turn to drugs and alcohol, but that could have happened. Yeah, happened as well.
Yeah.
And I dealt with it by keeping myself busy and keeping myself, busy doing having these conversations with people and riding my motorcycle and doing all those things. And at night, I'd go away and I'd go live in my cardboard box. None of them ever knew.
And was that because you were afraid to be vulnerable, because you were afraid to be judged, or that your mother and father would have be ashamed?
I think all of the above.
Yeah.
I think intellectualizing it,
Yeah.
I would say that now, but at the time, it was just, okay, this is my life, this is how I am, period. And intellectualizing it now, I think you're right, because it was fear of rejection. Even with some of these worst, shouldn't say worst kinds of people, but people that were not motivated and moving forward and making something of their life. I was, if they knew I was homeless, then they would think less of me. So that's fear of rejection.
Absolutely.
I'd never told my family. I never told anybody else because it was shame, and they would reject me, and they would let me know, if you will, that you weren't raised this way and do something different.
Yeah.
So there was a conflict that was going on inside. Mm-hmm.
And then you got out of it.
Yeah.
How did you do that?
I got out of it with the help of somebody else. Somebody that I didn't know. And as you know, you just came from the 8 Factor, so you heard this before. But for your listeners, what I will say is this. When we're at our worst, we also are at an opportunity to turn things around. And I didn't know this at the time. I had no idea that this is what I was doing. But at the bottom was when I started to say some things about myself that were different. And what I was saying about myself, because it was on my 19th birthday, I started to say that, hey, I'm a man now. And I started to say that out loud. And I felt I was going crazy, and I'm a man. And I started to think about, in that moment, I started to think about what I wanted instead of what I didn't want. And in that moment, I stopped feeling sorry for myself.
It started shifting.
Yeah. And there were other things that led up to it, but it was the bottom. I had actually tried to take my life earlier that evening. And it was just the bottom. And it was just, I actually thought I was going crazy because I was yelling, I'm a man. But now I know that created let's just say a magnetic field of attraction, if you will, at the time.
Yeah, we look at energetically, the shift in the rays of the vibration made a different awareness also.
Yeah, it made a different awareness, but I also believe to my core that it stimulated the universe out there to bring into my life this couple of situations and circumstances that made things different. Because the next morning, a man gave me a book. And it's somebody that I didn't know, and he gave me the book because he felt like I needed to read this book. And the book was Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah, amazing.
Now, the interesting thing is, I believe that everything you've ever touched, tasted, smelled, and experienced in our lives, it's in our other than conscious mind. And they're also, and all those experiences are also puzzle pieces that you can arrange any way that you want to make what you want. And the puzzle pieces of my work ethic, my thankfulness and gratefulness to help other people and all those things, all that stuff came together, and my discipline came in. I read the book and I did what the book said. The book was called Think and Grow Rich. It had some very simple exercises in it. And when I did them, I started to think differently and feel differently. And my life started to change. And when I went back to the gentleman that gave me the book, and by the way, he begrudgingly gave the book. He didn't give the book like, oh, you're in bad shape, let me give you this book. He gave me this book because I actually had broken my motorcycle, and I asked him to fix it. And I said, I'll sweep your floors if you fix it. And he said, you read the book. And he refused to fix my motorcycle till I read the book.
That man had a beautiful soul.
Yeah. He didn't.
He didn't?
No, he was the meanest, most cantankerous person I'd ever met in my life.
And he did give you the book.
But he gave me the book. We actually were friends for many, many years after that. He passed about 20 years ago. But he was just mean. He really was. He was not out to help other people. Well, I shouldn't say that. because he did say to me when I went back to him, and we had very few conversations, by the way. He was just that kind of guy.
Yeah.
I said, how do I thank you? How do I give back to you? Because he never let me sweep his floors and everything. And he goes, how you thank me is you do the same thing that I did for you for as many people as you can. And that was it.
So, well, okay. So he had a behavior that didn't show his beautiful soul, but
yeah, okay.
Well,
that was very nicely put. Yes, I like that. Yeah.
He also was a little bit locked down, or how do you call that? Shut off or hurt, whatever.
Whatever it was,
connect in that way. But
he literally told me several times, "Get out of my shop. I'm sick of you." Literally, I would go over there and I'd visit him, and he'd go, "Get out of my shop. I'm sick of you. I don't need you around here anymore."
Yeah, so he
meant it.
He had no skills to really connect, but he did it in a book.
I love the way you're reframing this, and it's beautiful because you're absolutely right. I believe that inside he did care on some level.
He saved your life in a way.
Yeah, no doubt,
And that was probably the foundation of that magnetism. And also, you told us that your mom already educated you with the fact that everything you needed is out there.
Yeah.
And that must have resonated with the book also, because
it didn't at the moment.
Not yet. You couldn't.
It didn't. I didn't even realize it at the time.
No.
All I did was did what the book said. I didn't have to know. I didn't know why anything worked. I read the book. The book said do A, B, C, D. I did A, B, C, D, and my life started to change. Later on, I started to realize that those puzzle pieces fit together. Later on, I started to realize that, wait a minute, my mom and other situations that I learned taught me that whatever you want is out there in the world somewhere. And later on, I realized that the processes that I was doing were creating that magnetism and bringing all the stuff that's out there in the world into my life.
Yeah, because that's something that what is different from the law of attraction that you really point out in the seminar is that there is something that is called magnetism. You show that actually with a magnet also. Uh-huh. And if you have the magnet, if you are the magnet, then you can play with that and you can attract anything you want. So how do I magnetize myself?
By the way, that was very well put the way that you said it, if you are the magnet. Here's the way I like to explain it is this. First off, the laws of attraction, they're real.
Yes.
They really are real. We can and do all the time attract what we want. And it implies that you're attracting something towards you.
Yeah.
But what if you don't feel like you deserve it, can get it? What if you are the kind of person that has doubts and uncertainty about it, your worthiness and things like that, which we all do.
And then that's in the way.
Then what'll happen is you'll push what you want away.
Yes.
You'll sabotage yourself, and we all do it.
Yes.
So the concept of magnetism is this: to magnetize the concept, and you saw it on the video there.
Yeah.
That two magnets are attracted to each other. They're drawing towards each other. So the trick is to not only magnetize yourself, but magnetize what you want. In the analogy that I love to use over and over again, and by the way, I'm a scientist, I'm a neuropsychologist, so science and evidence-based proof is very important to me, that I want people to understand that this isn't just, me telling you, metaphors and unicorns and crystals and rainbows and things like that. This is real science. But the example that I like to use that everybody can relate to, and that is if you're sitting in your car and you feel somebody looking at you and you look over, that's very real. You can't, that feeling. From the science, or vice versa, you look at somebody else and they feel you looking at them and they look at you. That is evidence of magnetism working. And what that means is that when we put our attention and intention on somebody else, and I'm using another human being as an example, but it is synonymous with everything because we're all made of the same stuff, neutrons, protons, and electrons. And so we'll use people for an example, and that example, because you put your attention and intention on somebody else, 4 things happen. Number 1, your energy, you energetically, the electromagnetic energy of you grows. You can see it on Carillion photography on YouTube.
Amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. But
even when you cut off a piece of a leaf,
it's still there.
the energy is
the
still
energy
there.
is still there.
I have one physical kidney, but I always tell people I have two kidneys.
Two kidneys.
Because
right.
the other one is still energetically there.
It is there. And because you believe that, then guess what?
Yes. And then when they check my function, the doctor always say, it's amazing you have a better function than people with two kidneys.
Yeah. Because you still let it live there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so when you put, and by the way, so you're putting your attention and intention on that good kidney and the fact that the energy of that other kidney is there.
Yeah.
So when you do, you magnetize yourself and you magnetize, in your case, yourself as well, the kidney as well. Yeah. But when you look at somebody else, your energy grows. Number two, they feel it. It affects them.
Yeah.
Number three, because it affects them, it causes them to look at you and put their attention and intention on you.
Yeah.
They get magnetized. So you've magnetized yourself.
Yeah.
They felt it. You've magnetized them. And now two magnets are attracted towards each other. That is why you look at each other.
Yeah.
But the question is, what happens as soon as you look at each other and you catch each other? What happens 99% of the time, if not 100% of the time, we look away. And we look away because we're afraid. We look away because we think they're going to either reject us or they're going to think we're a creep or whatever it is.
Judge us.
Say again?
If
Or judge us. Yeah, that's fear of rejection. Because we don't think to ourselves, oh, they're going to judge us that, hey, who's that handsome man or that beautiful woman?
Yeah.
We assume that they're going to judge us that something's bad. That's fear of rejection. And when that happens, you flip the magnet over and you push them away.
Yeah.
They look away as well. And so that's what we go through life is as well. So when we want something, whether it's more money, whether it's to have a better body, whether it is to, somebody else in our life or whatever it is, and we have not taught ourselves to deal with that fear that shows up, that fear of rejection, that fear of whatever that comes up, then what is going to happen is we're going to sabotage that. We're going to flip that magnet over. We're going to push it away. I like to say this. You've heard me say this before, and that is people always say, well, if the laws of attraction are that I attract what I think about, then if I'm thinking about bad things, is that, am I attracting those bad things? And the answer is no. The truth of the matter is the magnet does not care. It doesn't care. It only wants what it wants. Not what it doesn't want.
It's just polarity. It's not duality.
It's just polarity. Yeah. We call it polarity, but I like to simplify it so people can understand, because polarity, in a magnet, and I showed it to you guys there, if you flip the magnet over, it'll literally push the other magnet away.
Yeah.
But for human beings, what it is in any magnet, whether it's a real magnet like that or a human being, it doesn't care what you don't want. It cares about what you do want. And it cares about what you're focusing on. So if you're focusing on what you don't want, then it means you're not focusing on what you do want.
Okay, so if we put it in a practical case, let's say somebody is traumatized and has the need of being loved, wants to feel it in the outer world, so goes out looking for somebody to be loved, but is still traumatized, because that is the difference. And then let's say somebody who's a narcissist will first say to you, oh, you're beautiful, you're everything I need, and all that, etc. And then that person attracts that kind of energy because they're traumatized, and they will take enough of, they think it's good enough already, because they're not the observer yet of their own trauma, of their own pain. They're identifying themselves with the pain. And then they can attract somebody negative, to put it in that perspective, but it's not really negative. It's something that you have to learn, that if somebody treats you wrong, there's something inside of you that thinks that you still need something from that person, that you don't love yourself enough. So to put it in the perspective of, if you think of something negative, or you attract something negative, you cannot attract other negative things. People might think, yeah, but I did. I attracted a narcissist, or I attracted a whatever. But that's because the trauma is still in the way then. They're not an observer yet. Is that also?
I would agree, yes.
Yeah. So what we should do is stop identifying us with who we say we are. I am depressed, or I am insecure, I am whatever, and observe that and say, where is my pain? Where's my trauma? What is it that I need to fulfill myself as being worthy and feeling great? And that's what we do. We heal people in that part, don't we?
I would agree with
Yes.
you. And there's lots of different processes to be able to do that.
To do that, to be able to do
and
that.
It's just my personal practice that has been, I spent a lot of time having a real private practice, doing traditional therapy with people. And one of the things that I observed is this, that helping somebody, first off, I agree with you 1,000%, helping people recognize that they do have trauma is very important.
Yeah.
And also there is value in helping them find out where that trauma came from. And it's been my experience that in that process of doing that, I will say this first, the skill level of the practitioner has a lot to do with it as well. Because reminding somebody of their trauma and where that trauma came from sometimes can be traumatizing in itself. And the concept of helping them observe who they are and where they are and everything is valuable as well. I would like to add to that, and that is this. Help them get rid of the feeling of it first,
Exactly.
and then go find it.
Yeah.
Because, in other words, have them say, you go, what do you want? And they go, well, I want somebody in my life that loves me and that I'm attracted to and I'm loved and everything as well. When you ask people like that, whether it's a narcissist or whether it is somebody that is needy or something like that, 99% of the time you go, what do you want? They go, I don't want to, have this as somebody in my life that uses me, or I don't want to have somebody that this, I don't want. So they're telling me what they don't want.
Yeah.
And so then when I go, okay, well, what do you really want? And so you've seen it. Sometimes it's through tears. They'll finally go, I want to be loved, or I want to make more money, or I want to do this. Then the next question is, what stops you? And as soon as you ask them that, that's the fear. So you notice that I didn't ask what was the trauma. So if I can help somebody get out of the fear first, and then we go look for where that came from, then they're able to identify with it, observe it, and then we can work on that as well. That's just my personal.
I agree totally. Yeah, very important step.
Yeah.
Because your mom was very special to you, right? And one of the stories you told during UPW touched my heart, and that was when your mom was diagnosed with a severe, and it's still I still get emotions from that story, and because she was given up, basically. At
She
first.
was given up by the doctors.
By the doctors, yes. And one of the most important things I always tell my participants is the nocebo and placebo effect. What do you tell yourself, and what do you take as a reality? What do you take in? And one of the things you said when we started was, I'm really aware of what I do and do not take in through my eyes, senses, everything. That's so important that we mention that again.
It is, yeah.
Because we have a word called waarnemen, and waarnemen is like observing. But waarnemen also says through taking. That's what it is if you would translate it. And so what do you take in for the truth, right? That's what it really means. And as soon as you are aware of what you're taking in as a truth, you don't have to. You start to notice that it is just an idea of somebody. You don't have to do it. Use it. You don't have to believe it. They told me I was diagnosed with a severe, with one kidney and would not heal and all that. And they told me after 2 operations that I could never be able to heal. I needed a transplantation. I needed dialysis. And I just didn't believe it. I didn't take it in as a truth. I knew there was another way. And then by coincidence, where I don't believe, because I believed I attracted that person in my life, the same as the person that gave you the book. She said, there's just an emotion on it. And emotion is energy and movement, emotion. And once you lift and shift that energy, then the pain will go away. And at first I never heard of that idea.
Right.
It was over 20 years ago, and I thought, she's crazy. That woman is absolutely not from this world, because I had my own paradigmas. And then when I started to open up for that idea, I shifted the energy and I got healed in not even 10 minutes after 7 years of medical processes. And that's why I want to point this out, that the what do you take as a truth? What is your reality? Which reality do you create?
I agree. It's all perception.
It's
and
all perception.
What you just said to me is this. It's almost a validation of what I said before. You had been dealing with what other people said about, your condition, and then somebody said to you, you don't have to believe that.
Exactly.
That's when the shift was made.
Yes.
So, in other words, they dealt with the fear right now in the moment.
Yeah.
And just like me when I was homeless, it was like something happened in the moment. See, a lot of people feel like, which is true, by the way, change can and does take time. You can't go to the gym and just lift this weight one time and this muscle's going to grow. But you can go to the gym and lift this weight one time and then celebrate and go, wow, this feels really good. And that will make you want to do it again, and make you want to do it again, and make you want to do it again. And so that, in that case, change happens in that moment.
Yeah.
And so my point to all of this stuff is, let's get to that point even quicker. You heard me talk about it at the seminar, is that what people don't ask is, what's the truth? Yeah. But the truth is what you make it up to be. See, you were fortunate to have somebody else and say, here's what the truth is, that kind of thing. Yeah. But, we're all free will.
Absolutely.
And we can make anything the truth that we want it to be. You'll believe anything that you tell you.
That's what happened with your mom. That's why I was pointing out that story, and why it touched me so much, because you had the same experience. You went to the hospital and the doctor said
2 months.
2 months. She's not going to make it. And you really begged the doctor not to tell her, right? That's the story I remember.
Yeah, sure. Told. It's right. You're right. You listened very well.
Thank you. How did the doctor react to that?
Oh, he was up against me. He had me thrown out of the hospital. He had me removed from the hospital because I threatened him that if he told her that, I was going to do things to him. And he had me thrown out of the hospital. Wow. But here's the difference. While I was outside of the hospital, I practiced what I preach. I stepped back and went, okay, wait a minute. I'm upset. That's not changing anything. What can I do? And that's when I started to realize that, well, wait a minute. I can influence my mom, and I can influence her in the things that I knew about health and our belief systems and how we can change our mind in dealing with that kind of thing. And that gave me the observation and to be optimistic and go, okay, here's what I do know. Laughter helps. Here's what I do know. Focusing on what you want helps. Here's what I do know. Finding evidence of people that have done it. Here's what I do know. Diet and all those things. And so that's what I came back with, a whole different attitude. Because, I mean, it was terrifying to hear that, and I'm sure it was terrifying for you to hear those things. And to hear that my mom was, could pass away. And I also am very fortunate in that I have great mentors in my life. And one of them, the person who said the saying that really made the difference in me, that gave me that perspective, was Deepak Chopra. Deepak said that when somebody says that to you about anything, you say, I appreciate your diagnosis, but I will not accept your verdict.
That's what I do, yeah.
And that's what I told the doctor, and I never let him tell her that.
Good.
I never let him tell her that. And she lived another 11 and a half years.
Yeah. God bless her soul, yeah. When my husband had a motorcycle accident, he went into coma. He had the most destructive brain injury.
TBI.
And they told me he would never, ever function again. He would, even if he would even wake up, because they were not sure about that. And the first thing I did, and so that's why I remember it, was, that's your truth. Because I know my husband for 20-some years, and I know he has some patterns. And one of them was, I'm not allowed to fail. And the other one was, I have to do it on my own.
Nice.
And I knew those patterns, and it still touches me. Because I went up to him, he was in coma. And I did some hypnosis on him. And I told him, if this is the moment for you to decide whether you want to live or not, because I'm not here to tell people to die or not. It's up to him. Then this might be your wake-up call now.
Nice.
And I know you are afraid. And I know you think you have to do it on your own. And I know this and I know that and I understand. And I see you, I hear you, I feel you. And I gave him that acknowledgement also. So I just recognized his patterns. I gave him the acknowledgement and I told him to act upon it as he wanted. So when the doctors didn't get him out of that sleep out of that coma for 2 days, I did that in 20 minutes. And that was the point where I took over, where I said and I'm not against any medic.
Nor am I.
Not
nor
at
am
all.
I.
There's just a different domain
Yeah.
that is forgotten.
Yeah.
And ever since that moment, I knew I have to get this out there because people need to know.
Well, don't
this.
leave me in suspense. How is your husband?
You're going to meet, you didn't meet him. He was here.
No.
He is absolutely great.
Well,
He is
there you go.
functioning. He is the most wonderful guy ever. Actually, after the accident, he became a better man.
Yeah.
Because
brushes with death tend to wake you up a little bit. Yes, don't
the
they?
near-death experience did him good, you
Yeah.
could say that.
Yeah, it's like-
Because before that, he was stubborn and he never
Yeah.
able himself to feel and always had to be in control and all that. And that actually, when you when you speak about magnets, and he pushed me away in that matter. And that was also we were at the point of our lives that I didn't know if I want to be with him anymore.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. So then the accident happened, that's always what happens. And ever since we are connected in this very special.
So you were optimistic. Maybe you had more options than the other person.
That's
right.
what you also told in the A factor. Be optimistic. It's already in the word options.
Yeah, it's seeing more options.
Yes, seeing more options and act upon it.
Yeah.
And be confident about it. I think it, I see it, I feel it, I do it, I have it. And magnetize things is manifesting things.
Yeah. I have a little bit of a different understanding of that or definition of that. Manifesting implies that you're creating something out of nothing. Okay. You're manifesting and it just all of a sudden it's going to appear. I prefer magnetizing because yes, it already exists. It's out there somewhere. I'm not making it happen. I told you guys a story about, or maybe I didn't. I don't remember. I did. I told you. I passed by. I needed to buy a new house because my son had had started high school, and I needed to move from Newport Beach to another area. And I'd pass this same street every day for 6 months. And one day when I decided, well, wait a minute. The trauma, if you will, the trauma in me was my ego I was living in Newport Beach and it's very high end and very lucrative and all that stuff. And I had to move into the city, a place called Santa Ana. So it was my ego. And when I realized that's my fear, and it was fear of rejection. It was fear if I told you or I told my business partners, now I live in Santa Ana. And I didn't know that was living inside of me. So I immediately went to work on first ridding myself of the fear through stop techniques like I taught you guys. Once I got that over, then I went immediately towards magnetizing. And here was the thing. 6 months, and it just took like 2 days. 6 months I've been driving the same way, and I never saw, because my requirements was I had to have a gated community and all these other amenities and all these things. Then, just a couple of days later after I'd been doing this, I'm driving down the same street and something made me look to the right. And there's this beautiful gated community that I'd never seen before, even though I passed it every single day.
Yeah.
And so did I manifest it? That community's been there for 20 years.
Everything is out there already.
It's already out there already. What it did was magnetize me to it.
Yeah.
So made me go, oh, there it is. and so it was already there. I turned it into a magnet that made as I was driving by, it goes, hey, look over here. And I looked over there and I saw it. Yeah. And within just a few days, I had a house in there.
Amazing how it works. And it works. As soon as you experience those kind of miracles, then you start believing it more, and then it happens.
Well, I've been doing it for a long time, and I believe that I magnetize things much, much quicker than I ever have in my life now.
Yeah, beautifully. Since we're talking about options, I have a little game in my podcast, which is called Option Stress. I give you 2 options. You have to choose one, even though you cannot. And then you can always afterwards say something about it if you want. Are you ready for it?
Yeah, bring it.
All right, let's go. Happy or healthy?
Both.
No, you have to choose.
No, I don't. No, I don't.
This time you do.
No, I don't.
No, you're not. I'm not going to tell you what to do. Okay.
Okay. So I'll play your game.
Yes, play
and
my
here's
game.
what I'll say. If I had to choose which one, I would say happy.
All right.
And let me tell you why.
Yes.
Because happy people are healthier people. I wrote the book on it. I wrote a book called Get Happy Now.
Yeah.
And happy people are healthy people. Laughter and joy and all those things tell your cells that they want to live, and they will help you be more healthier. So I would choose happy.
High five. I totally agree.
But I'm joking with you a little bit.
Yeah.
That you don't have to choose
I
either one.
understand.
You can choose both
No, we
or
look
neither.
alike.
But I'll play the game with you.
Yeah, just play the game. And that's why I call my retreats happy healing retreats. Exactly for that reason. So I find you there in that point. Manifesting or magnetism?
Well, you already told you that.
Yeah.
We're going for the magnetism.
Doing or being?
Being.
A sweat lodge or ice bath?
Neither one.
I knew you were going to say that.
Neither one. But they both suck as far as I'm concerned. And I'm going to say this. I'm joking around. I've done them both. Okay.
Yes.
And both of them were horrifying to me.
Oh, yes.
But I know people that do it all the time.
And they love it.
I hate the cold, as all my friends know. I just hate the cold worse than anything. And when I did the sweat lodge, it was so. By the way, I have my own sweat lodge called an infrared sauna in my house.
Yeah.
Okay. But it didn't involve people throwing up and screaming and yelling in the sweat lodge like it did there. Yeah.
Why did this?
Because that was their experience. I'd rather go in my own sweat lodge and my own and do it. So out of the 2 of them, oh gosh, I'm trying to play your game. Oh jeez. All right, so I'm going to choose the sweat lodge because I'd rather have heat than the.
Okay. I've never seen somebody throw up in an infrared.
I hate it. I hate the cold, but I also hate people throwing up around me.
So why would you do it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Awareness or ego?
Awareness.
All right. Naive or open-minded?
Open-minded.
Yeah. Believing or seeing?
Believing.
Therapy or self-reliant?
Therapy.
Pure nature or natural?
What's the difference? Just so I know.
It's
So I can.
perception. What is your difference?
Pure nature
Or natural?
Here's the trouble I'm having. I think they're both.
They're both the same.
Yeah.
That's also a possibility. Yeah. Regular or alternative?
Alternative.
Yeah. Or maybe even better, complementary. When you it's adjusting. Oh, I don't know if that's an English
Compliance.
word. Compliance. Yeah. Follow your dreams or success is a choice.
Follow your dreams.
Awake or asleep?
Gosh. Awake.
All right. There was a little doubt there.
Well, because I love sleep.
I know, yeah. Life chooses for you or you choose life?
You choose life.
All right. Taking chances or wait for it to happen?
Taking chances.
Left or right?
There's so many things that go through my head as I think about that. What could that mean? I'm a right-handed person, so I'm going to choose right. However, I love to play bass guitar, and I need both of my hands.
True.
So in playing bass guitar, the left hand is the most important. So it'd be contextual. So I would say my first instinct would be right because that's the hand that I use the most, that I'm strongest in. But left and right means
there's so many levels.
We
have the brain left and right. We have politics. We have energetically left and right.
In my country, you have political left and right. You have so it's it's contextual. I think so.
Absolutely, yeah. You play the bass drum, right? You have a lot of bass. You have a collection. Of bass drums.
Bass guitars.
I'd love to hear it. You didn't bring it? We could have had a little show.
I actually. forgot that I have an extra day here. I usually bring one with me, and I would have brought it to.
I would have loved that. Well, maybe next time we can have a little show. Let's do that. Yes or no?
Yes.
Of course.
Yeah.
Is there something you would like to get back on, or was everything loud and clear?
I'm still bothered by that sweat lodge and cold. That's going to bother me the rest of the day, and I'm going to need some healing.
I will do that after the podcast. I will heal that. Well, you know how to heal that. Yeah. I love sweat lodges. I really love them. So I had to laugh when you said that about throwing up, and because
Were you with people that were throwing up?
never.
I was.
Yes, I can imagine. Why would they do that? What happened in their body? What was their mindset?
Well, also, I did it, and I don't remember this a few years ago, but I did it just because it was an experience that people were telling me, oh, you got to do this. And I did it and had that experience. It was just like, because they wouldn't let us leave.
Oh, they wouldn't let you leave?
No.
Why not?
Because that
Where
was
did
the
you go?
experience. I know.
Yeah.
For this particular one. So, but let me tell you this. So when I came out of there, it was just like, nope, thank you. This was, an experience. I appreciate you guys doing this with me, but I'm not ever doing this again. About 3 months later, and you may remember this. Oh gosh, I forgot his name. I knew the guy that did it. Did a sweat lodge, and about 8 people died in there in the U.S. And he was one of the people that was on the movie The Secret.
I've seen that one.
Yeah.
I've seen a documentary about that person.
Yeah.
That he had a whole bunch of people and they couldn't leave.
They wouldn't let him leave.
Yeah, but that's of course not.
And they died.
Yeah.
Well, they wouldn't let me leave either as well. And I
So
almost died.
Yeah, then I can imagine. But those kind of sweat lodges are different than the infrared.
Yeah, that's just like,
Yeah.
I was with some friends last night and they were saying, we had dinner at this place, and one of the specialties of this particular restaurant was cauliflower. Now, there's certain things that I don't like.
Yes.
One of them is cauliflower.
Yeah.
I don't like cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, or zucchini. There's nothing wrong with them.
No.
And if you like them, that's great.
Enjoy it.
But enjoy it. And they're telling me, oh, you just haven't had it right. You haven't had the right kind. And I go, yeah, maybe you're right, but I'm still not going to eat them.
Yeah, which is absolutely.
Yeah. It's a choice.
Yeah, it's a choice. You can dislike things. That's true. Okay, there's one other category I have, and that is called Dr. Phil, because my name is Vilna.
Okay.
So it's kind of a funny thing, but everybody needs healing and coaches. And so if I was about to coach you right now, what would be the topic? If there's something that your cell memory would benefit from after healing, after having a reset, being healed, what would you like to reset in this time of your life?
It's interesting you say that, because I've been doing EFT for the last few weeks.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And because I'm always about, new experiences and doing things. And the things that came up, there's several things that came up going through the process, were two of the things. One of them was realizing that I love my dad. My father passed away about 6 years ago, and I love him for everything that he did. And he was born in 1929, which is a very difficult time to be a black man.
Crisis, right? Was the crisis time?
Say again?
Also in the USA, crisis in the USA also for the
There's
black man?
always a crisis in the USA for the black
that's
man.
true.
I'm not kidding. I mean,
that's
it always was,
true,
but in those
yeah.
times especially.
Especially, yeah.
And he didn't complete his education. He didn't finish high school. So the way he got off of the streets was to join the Air Force. And from there, then he found my mom. They got married, and by the time he was 22 years old, he had 2 children and one on the way. And by the time he was 29 years old, he had 4 kids. And so he spent our childhood going to school and working 2 jobs,
Wow.
which means he was never around. Mm-hmm. He also instilled in us, all the things, like I said, the discipline and things like that, but he also instilled in us that education was more important than art, but I'm an artist.
Yeah.
I was a musician, and so he, without going into it, he disapproved of that path that I wanted to go down. And I'm not going to go into the incidents and things that he did. And he was never cruel. He was never mean, but he also never showed any interest in those things in my life. And as a result, for me, I went through my life. Like I said, I was afraid to quit my job, to pursue music, to pursue the things that I wanted. And everything always works out. But to answer your question, that's a long answer to your question, but I'm still working on those issues of realizing that I was angry with him because he wasn't around, because he was working all the time.
And disapproval.
And his disapproval of that.
Yeah.
Because I would never do that to my son. And we all do this as parents. We want better for our children. I'm in my son's life most of the time, much to his disapproval now because he's a teenager.
Yeah.
But I also, his choices of who he wants to be, I support him, and I'm very supportive. So I realized that I had issues with that. So to answer your question, that would be the thing. Those memories and things like that.
And in what kind of way do you experience that trauma or that neglect or that disapproval? Where does it hinder you, or where does it block you from?
Well, now, because I've been working on them, here's what I'll say this honestly from the heart, and I'm not trying to sound like some sort of saint. You called it a coping mechanism before, okay? My coping mechanism before was to be very productive. My coping mechanism was to try, because I did win his approval when I would do things that were scholastically well and things like that. Yeah. So my coping mechanism was to do that. But my coping mechanism with myself, with regard to neglecting the things that my heart wanted to do, was regret. I lived in regret for a long time. And I always wanted to do something. And here's how it surfaces. And the reason I started working on that is I have dreams every once in a while. They're getting less and less. But I realized just, probably a month and a half ago, that oftentimes in my dreams, I'm trying to get somewhere and I can't get there. Things keep getting in my way. Things keep stopping me from doing things. Like, I'll give you an example. I am a musician. I'm a songwriter, and oftentimes when I'm asleep, I get these beautiful songs in my head. And even though I'm not pursuing that career anymore, I still have a studio in my home. I like to write music. I like to play music and everything. And I get this beautiful song in my head. And in my dreams, I'm looking for my phone. This is just an example of a dream, so that I can record either the song that I'm hearing played somewhere, or so that I can sing the song in there so that I'll remember it later. But I either can't find my phone, or I find my phone and it's out of battery, or I find the phone and I can't find the app, and then I wake up.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's tied to my frustration and regret about not getting to where I want. Because I did become a musician. I got a recording contract, but I got it when I was like 34 years old, which is an old musician in the beginning for that industry. And there was always, and so that's where I went looking for.
Did you feel the regret that you didn't become famous by the music industry?
No, because it never was the fame.
What was it?
It was the joy of playing. Otherwise, I wouldn't play now.
But did you enjoy the playing then when you recorded it?
Yeah.
So what was the regret?
The regret was that I didn't do it sooner. The regret
because if you would have done it sooner, then
the regret it was that I didn't get to enjoy it at the level that I could have when I finally did it. I told you, you at the seminar, that I put myself through college as a dental technician. And even after I got my degrees, I still stayed in school. I still kept going to school because that was my programming. And all of that time, I didn't know why I was still going to school. It was just like I had to do it. And during that time, I could have, and I believe should have been enjoying my life a bit more than I did.
And if you would have had that experience before, let's say when you were 20 or 19, and you would have made the music, then you feel that would have helped in not regretting it?
No, I feel I would have been happier because I did make music. I just did it. I did it with this feeling
you mean that
inside.
you followed your heart sooner?
Yeah.
Then you would have lived your passion and your dreams and your heart sooner than later.
I would have been happier.
Yeah, you
sooner.
would have been happier sooner.
Because I did all of that stuff with some level of, don't get me wrong, I'm a happy guy, and
Yes.
I had a good time when I was doing that stuff. I did that with some level of urgency that I'm doing it to achieve versus I'm doing it to just have fun doing it.
Always leaning on the urge to approve yourself, or that people say you're worthy enough.
Yeah.
Is it also because, how old is your son right now?
17 and a half.
Oh yeah. And is that also the mirror of your soul? Because that's sometimes what happens when if I speak from my own experience.
People ask me that, but he is the polar opposite of me.
Yeah, but that's could also be a mirror in the way that he does something that you didn't do, which gets that pain out in your. You know what I mean? That because he.
Yeah, I don't know. Let me give you an example. So he has a girlfriend, and his girlfriend is coming up on 2 years, about a year and a half that they've been together. She's just such a sweetheart, such a sweet girl, and everything. And he's a really good kid. But he's a teenager. And teenagers at a certain age, you're not their hero anymore. And so I was saying this to the other podcaster earlier that he literally, I was his hero, and he would introduce me to his friends. And I heard him one time when he was little. He was in his room playing with his friends, and something crashed and broke, and I heard it happen, and I was going to rush back there to see what it was, but I just decided to let them figure it out. And I heard my son go to one of his friends, "Don't worry about it. My dad can fix anything." And I felt so proud. And that's the way I was in his life all the way up until he turned into a teenager. And then it started to be like he stopped talking so much. He stopped talking to me so much. We still are close, but he just became more of a, quiet, just the opposite of me kind of guy. Meaning I talk a lot,
Outgoing.
I'm energetic and outgoing and all those things. And he's a little outgoing and everything. So he was in his room, laying on his bed, doing what teenagers do. He just scrolling through his phone, whatever like that. Just low energy, just that kind of thing. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to go in and have a conversation with him. I'm going to talk to him for a while. And I go in to his room and I sit down in a chair, and there's a picture of him and his girlfriend on the wall. And I said to him, I'm really happy that you're really happy with your girlfriend. I didn't have my first real girlfriend till I was out of high school. He didn't even look up. He's laying on his bed like that, scrolling to his phone, and he goes like this.
Loser.
Puts the loser sign on his head like that to me. And that was it. He didn't say one word.
Oh,
and it
wow.
was like, time for me to leave,
Disrespect as hell.
Well, it was, he was being funny. He's got my sense of humor and everything.
It was not really. It was a
No,
fun.
he was just like, but
Okay.
it was like, it was like, he's, in some ways, he's the mirror of me, in that I know he has some of my qualities and everything. And in some ways, he's just the polar opposite of me.
Yeah. What I mean is that when we go through phases, this is my own experience, so I don't know if that's for you also, but I have 3 children, 25, 23, and 21. And there's when they go through phases like puberty or all that could trigger something in me, in my puberty or in my old days, that reminds me of how I had it or what I would have wanted to have.
Yes.
That's what I mean.
The answer is yes. And I had my son when I was 54 years old.
Wow.
So one of the great things about, it's not that I recommend it for anybody. Yeah.
Well, you're still a young dad with energy and all that.
But I will say this, that had I had him when I was younger, I would be a different I would have different types of experiences now, because now I can observe them and I can go, that's just a phase he's going through. And, you know, and yes, I sort of remember those phases and everything, but I treat it differently than I would have if I was younger, you know.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Yes. So I'm very privileged to be talking to you right now.
You as well. Thank you.
And I thank you for your honesty and your vulnerability. And, I always end the podcast with something that I would like to give to the viewers and the listeners too. They can a tip or a trick. But before we do, I was privileged to be in your seminar as a speaker.
Yes,
that was
thank
my
you.
first international experience, which was really great. Thank you for that opportunity. And you're coming back next year.
Yes.
So, would you like to say something about that?
I absolutely would. First off, for people that don't know what you know, we can call it a seminar. I like calling them workshops, and the reason being is because you know this. We're going to do some stuff.
Yes.
We're going to work. It's not about you just coming and me teaching you stuff. You're going to do some experiences, and the experiences are this. The workshop is called the A factor, the attraction factor. I actually should call it the abundance of factor, but we call it the attraction factor. And it's about these three things. Number one, obviously, magnetism, the depth of the magnetism that we were just talking about, not just learning about it, but how it works and the process to make yourself more magnetic, as you know. So day number one, we learn about it. I call it tell, show, try. Do I tell you? I show you, as you saw the videos, all these things, all the evidence, so that you know this isn't, like I always say, unicorns and crystals and rainbows. This is science. And then I show you the process. And then the first day you have to do the process. And the next day you show up as a different person because you've done the process. And you start to recognize that, wait a minute, I'm on the way of getting what I want. Which, by the way, in that process, in that day, you get to figure out what it is that you want. And now you have that tool. So the second day, we deal with the emotions of those two things, or that we, you know, they always accompany those 10 things that I talk about. The toxic 10, which are procrastination, hesitation, fear of failure, fear of success, self-doubt, self-loathing, imposter syndrome, stress, and overwhelm. But you get to choose an emotion, whether it's a memory, whether it is a, you know, inhibition, whether it is just a feeling that you have that causes you to feel bad in that moment. That you know, all you got to do is think about it and you can feel bad. And then you learn the process of what we call pattern replacement, which means get rid of it, but replace it with something that's better. And I always say this to people: bring your worst nightmare, bring your worst fear, bring your worst, any of that stuff, because within that day, you're going to do a process that you're not going to be able to feel it again. You're not going to be able to feel it the way that you did before. And if you can't feel it, then guess what? You're starting to move in, as you say, heal in that way. Now, this is not the end all and be all, as you know. However, it's not something that I do to them and I'm going to do to you. It is something that we're going to do together, and you do it. So you get the realization that I can change myself. I don't need Joseph, and I don't need this. I don't need that. I can do this myself. And that level of confidence is something new. So that's stacked on what you learned the day before. And then the third day is, as you know, the most important belief that you have is the belief that you have about yourself. And so that day, you get to design the identity that is best suited for you and embed that into your nervous system. So each day is something different. So all three of those days are, and then you have homework to do when I'm gone, so that you didn't just go to this seminar and just learn this stuff. So it's experiential. It is evidentially experiential, meaning that you can see that it works by you doing it. And so that event is 3 days long. It is April, I want to say 17th, 11th. Let's say April the 11th of next year. And it's here in Holland. It's in Dutch. No, it's not.
Yeah. I will teach you Dutch in meanwhile then.
Yeah.
We'll program you then.
You'll program me before you will learn it. And here's the deal that I encourage people. Well, first off, this has been, I just gave a real quick example of it. But I'm sure you'll post it on the website that they can go to for Succesgids, which my amazing partners, Herbert and Stefan, are. They've been my partners for a decade or so now, and I love coming back here to Holland, and so nice. You'll go there and you'll see what happens at the seminar, and you get your questions answered there and everything. And what I encourage people to do is this: book it now, because for a couple of things. It's limited size. We don't do like huge. It's limited size, so it will sell out, number one. And then number two, when you book it now, then, and I know they have some specials on there and those things. When you book it now, your nervous system has something to look forward to. It's not just a vacation that you're booking. Your freaking life will change.
It already starts the process.
Yeah, it starts a process while you're in there. And then the third thing is bring as many people with you as you can. And here's the reason why. Because if you have people that are around you, you were saying this about your husband, right?
Yeah.
Before he had his accident, there was tension and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, if you go somewhere and you learn something and you come back to that same environment and that person hasn't changed, then it's a little tougher.
I always say that as well.
Yeah,
bring your partner, please
bring people with you, because
your loved ones, everyone. Yeah.
So that's one side of it. But the other side of it is they have that same experience with you, and so when you leave, you guys move as a unit through life, and everything around you changes because they're they're magnetizing things, and they're changing as people, and they're being better versions of themselves and all that stuff. And now you have a core group of people, and here's what happens. Lastly, I'll say this on that subject, is that I have a saying, and the saying is, those of us that dare to dream and do something about it, while the rest of the world is having a nightmare, we're not only going to create the abundance that we want for our own lives, but we're going to be shining examples for other people of what is possible. And unless you've been living under a rock, most of the rest of the world is having a pretty hard time.
And that's why it's also so important to go to events that are in groups, because once the energy shifts with all those people in the room, it amplifies?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Multiplies.
It becomes a magnet.
It spreads in, and it spreads in the world who needs it, which need it. And that's what I always say. If that actually is also proven, also by Hawkins, who says, he says that if you are in the vibration of love, only by being in love, you influence 700,000 people with that energy.
Just that energy.
With just that energy.
Just that energy. And if I can add to that, because I believe that 1,000%, is that most people are only in that energy for short moments, short bursts of time. What we condition people to do, you said this at the very beginning, we condition people to be in more of that energy most of the time.
So that it's an addiction and that's the new normal. And that makes the world better and lighter. And that's what we're in right now. And actually the world is changing. So
it is.
You have to. There's a responsibility. You cannot do it. You cannot.
It is. I would agree with you. Responsibility means the ability to respond. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And I look at it as this. Yes, we all have the ability to respond. And most of us look at responsibility as, okay, it's a task or something that I have to do. So the way I like to look at responsibility, it's just my reframe for it. It is your privilege and your purpose to help other people.
Yeah.
Because that's why we help our kids. That's why we want to help other people. It's such a great feeling when you do that.
Beautifully said, yes. So is there one last thing, dear Mr. Joseph McClendon III, that you would like to say to the viewers as a tip or something that you would give them?
Yeah, it's something that I love to say, and that is this, that life is always exactly what you dare to make it. And fortune favors the bold. So the trick to life is to boldly step up and dare to make your life magnificent. And magnificence is to magnify the essence of who you are. And as you do that, you impact other people as well. So I dare you, come see us at the the A Factor next year. And seriously, for everybody, you owe it to yourself. I mean, first off, thank you everybody thank you for allowing me to be on this podcast and talk to your people. And for anybody that's listening or watching, we're doing this. take a few moments to go to that website, Succesgids, and take a look at what we're talking about and see that this is something that will nourish your soul and help you others around you as well.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Lieve kijkers en luisteraars, ik hoop dat jullie net zo geïnspireerd zijn. En dat we heel erg mogen nagenieten van alles wat hier gezegd is. En dat het je weer geraakt heeft in personal growth en healing. En je weet het, je bent zelfhelende kracht en je kan meer dan je denkt. Dankjewel.